My name is Siobhan Oates, and you are most welcome to this morning's webinar. I am a business consultant here in the Southeast Business Innovation Centre, and I am joined here today by my colleague, Rosemary Ward. Thank you all for logging in this morning. Today's webinar is all about showcasing women entrepreneurship here in the Southeast. We are very grateful to have with us a number of inspiring females from across the region, and they're going to share their success stories with us. We're delighted to be working with Network Ireland on this webinar. Network have branches all over the country and are extremely active within the Southeast. We also have Terry Smith from Enterprise Ireland, who is going to discuss the supports and funding available for women entrepreneurs here in the Southeast, but across the country. In 2020, Enterprise Ireland launched their own active plan for women in business, and you'll find that on their website. Key objectives of that action plan is to increase the number of women becoming entrepreneurs, to increase the number of women leading HPSUs, which are high potential startups, and also to increase the number of women having senior management roles. So here in the Southeast BIC, our tagline is supporting entrepreneurs, and we don't differentiate. We will always support anyone who walks through our doors. However, when there is an obvious issue with lack of gender diversity, it is important that we shine a light on that. And that's what today is all about. So I'm going to share out a few stats that may or may not surprise you. So 30% of senior managers are women, only 30%. Less than 20% of CEOs are women, and that falls to 9% in larger companies. Ireland has the highest gender gap in self-employment in the EU. Less than 10% of VC funding is going to companies with female founders, and only 3% of angel investors are women, and we are trying to change that within HBAN. So at the Southeast BIC, our female clients as a percentage of our overall client base for the last few years has been steadily increasing, and we are extremely proud of that. So in 2017, our female clients made up about 19% of our client base. This jumped to 23% in 2019, and it did jump even further last year to 39%. To date, in 2001, this sits at around 40% of our overall client base, and it just shows that even in a global pandemic, women can still excel. So I am going to talk you through today's agenda. So I am going to give you an introduction to the Southeast BIC, who we are, what we do, and the types of clients that we work with. I'll then pass you over to Aisling O'Neill, who's going to give you an introduction to Network Ireland and to Art Labs, and Aisling is up there today. As I mentioned, we are joined by several successful women entrepreneurs from across the Southeast. They are going to share their entrepreneurial journeys with us, and they'll also talk about the funding supports that were available to them when they needed them, and also the funding and supports that helped their businesses progress. This will be done over 2 fireside chats, and they'll be facilitated by my colleague Rosemary Ward and also by Aisling O'Neill. Terry Smith of Enterprise Ireland then is going to talk us through the supports and funding available to women entrepreneurs, and finally we will move on to a Q&A session. So we are hoping that this will be a very lively and engaged session, as there are a number of you here with us today. Throughout the webinar, there will be a Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. So I'd really appreciate it if you wanted to put in questions as we go along, and we will be monitoring this throughout, so we'll get to them. And finally then, for the Q&A session at the end, if you want to raise your hand, you're more than welcome to do so. So now I'm going to briefly talk to you about the Southeast Business Innovation Centre. So we are business consultants. We are a public-private partnership. We operate as a not-for-profit, and we have been around since 1995. We are very closely aligned to Enterprise Ireland, and we work mainly with their CSF, so their competitive start funds and their high potential startup companies. So they are companies and they're innovative, that have the potential to scale, create employment, and also export. I suppose now is a good time to mention that Enterprise Ireland currently have 2 competitive start fund calls open, and I know Terry is going to talk about them in a minute, so I'll only spend a brief bit of time on them. So the 2 calls that are open, they will run alongside one another. So one is in women entrepreneurship, which is very apt for our webinar today, and the second then is in all sectors, so anyone can apply for it within reason. So the Competitive Start Fund is a €50,000 investment into your company, and this call will close on September 28th. So just be wary of that. We at the Southeast BIC are contracted by Enterprise Ireland to work with companies on their applications. So if you are considering applying, please do so. Or if you want to find out more, contact us in the Southeast BIC and we will tell you all about it. And if you are applying and you're generating your application form, let us know and we'll take a look at it for you. So the Southeast BIC, so we support early stage companies, we support existing SMEs all over the Southeast. And we work closely with other agencies across the Southeast too. So that may be the likes of the Leos or New Frontiers. We are based in the Southeast, as the name suggests, and we do cover the 5 counties of the Southeast. So Waterford, Wexford, Carlow, Kilkenny and Tipperary. And we also have colleagues situated in other BICs. So we have colleagues in Cork, Dublin and also in Galway. So this is just a quick example of what we do with our clients. We evaluate the initial concept that comes to us and we'll make a plan for what should happen next. So that might be signposting them to other stakeholders in the region if we can't work with them or if it's an area that we don't deal with. Or it may include working with them, doing some business modeling, business planning, strategic plans, and so on. We also work with getting our clients investor ready. And finally, then we will work with them and hopefully getting them investment. So that might be through Enterprise Ireland, as I mentioned before, to the CSF fund or the High Potential Startup Fund, and through CBAN or through financial institutions or other funding streams that may become available. So I mentioned above CBAN as a source of investment for our companies. And what is CBAN? So it's a Southeast branch of the Halo Business Angel Network, and that is run by us in the Southeast BIC from the Southeast BIC. So it's funded by Enterprise Ireland, Entertrade Ireland and Invest Northern Ireland, and it's managed by our colleagues in Dublin BIC. It's delivered across the Republic of Ireland by all the other BICs, and then in the north it's delivered by Clarendon Fund Managers. So HBAN has been around since 2007, and we are responsible for angel activity across Ireland, north and south. We are experienced in managing deal flow and we have a robust screening process for angels and for the entrepreneurs, so we can ensure both of them that we are a trusted network. So I'm now going to hand you over to Ashton O'Neill. Ashton is going to give you a quick introduction to ARC Labs and also to Network Ireland. And Ashton is the National President of Network Ireland, and she is also the manager of ARC Labs Research Centre located in WAT. So Ashton, thanks a million for being here today, and I'll hand it over to you now.
Interesting for me when we opened the branch of Network Ireland Waterford in 2017, so 7 years later, and within 5 months we had over 100 members, and it just kind of really showed me the value in network, and I suppose that the increased appetite and motivation for female networks. Not at the we encourage obviously networking with all genders, so like Siobhan, we work with everyone, but it's just a very specific support network that we really access through Network Ireland and through that female engagement. So yeah, moving on then to 2019, and I was elected Vice President Designate because I just love the strategic side of Network, and here we are in 2021, and it's my president's year, which has been very different to what I was planning in 2019, but has been really, really wonderful too, and has left me meet such amazing people, 3 of whom you're going to meet as representatives of our Southeast networks today, but I know Erica is a member of another one of our networks too, so we've got a really great representation here today, and I'm really, really grateful to be here. So thank you very much to the team in Southeast BIC for organising.
Brilliant. Thanks a million for that, Aisling. So I'm just going to share my screen again. Apologies. So I'm now going to pass you over to Rosemary, and she's going to take us through the next fireside chat, or sorry, to the first fireside chat, I should say, and that is the funding and supports. So Rosemary has 2 guest speakers, Erica and Eve, and we really appreciate their time today. So Rosemary will make an introduction to them.
Hi everybody, thanks Siobhan. It's fantastic to be here today celebrating successful women entrepreneurs in the Southeast. And joining me this morning are 2 really inspiring women who I've been lucky enough to work with over the last couple of years, both of whom have recently completed New Frontiers programme, one in Carlow and one in Waterford. So we've got the whole region being represented at the moment and moving through their startup and funding journeys now, which is really, really exciting. Erica Hargen recently completed New Frontiers in Carlow, and her business Bobo is one I wish I knew about when my kids were small, which absolutely everybody says. I wrote that down on my script, and then Niamh came on about 10 minutes ago and said, I wish I knew about you when my kids were small. So I think this is a common thing, a common theme. So it's going to be fantastic when the world gets to know Bobo and understands what the potential is for a full night's sleep for us working parents and everybody out and about. Niamh Byrne is well known to many regionally and nationally as the owner of Ruby Rouge in Gorey. I keep saying Galway, in Gorey, but has moved into the technology space now with buyer picks, supporting retail buyers. So I'm not going to talk too much about these companies because nobody wants to hear from me. We want to hear from these fantastic two founders. So before we started, I said to them, I want to hear about the personal story, because I think at a lot of business events, we hear a lot about the business, but we don't hear about what brought the person to the business. And I think it's really important that we hear that. I always love hearing the backstory. I always love hearing somebody's personal story. The guys in the office slag me a little bit, say that I go in and I shine a big light on people to try and hear the story, but I love people's personal history and how they ended up coming to the conclusion of developing a business around possibly their personal experiences, etc. So I'm going to kick off. I'm going to ask Erica, because I can just see you there, just straight, to tell me a little bit about yourself from the personal perspective and what brought you to the point. We'll talk about Bob Og in a minute, but tell us a little bit about Erica and how you got to this stage.
Well, so I'm Erica Hargen, and I'm a mum of 3. And what brought me to this point was sleep deprivation. My first child, Quinn, who's now 12, was an absolutely chronically bad sleeper. And everywhere I turned for help and advice and somebody to literally tell me what to do, I was met with blank faces. And the sleep deprivation was having a very negative impact on my whole life. My marriage, which was only a year out the traps, and relationships with friends. I became very insular, which Rosemary knows is not me at all. I didn't want to go anywhere. I didn't want to leave my house. It was just absolutely chronic. And I did get on top of his sleep with the assistance of my mother. She really had to step in and go, Erica, we need to do something about this, and you're not functioning, and this is not good for you. And she did. She helped me. And I suppose that bore this huge respect and love for sleep thereafter, because once I started to sleep very well, because my son was sleeping very, very well, my whole life turned around. I went back to being who I am, and a dynamic individual, a very, very hard worker. And I suppose I was born again, and I started to self-educate myself about sleep when he was small, because when I went on to have 2 more children, Kate, who's now 10, and Patrick, who's now 5, I didn't want what happened to me on Quinn to ever happen again. And it didn't. With what I had learned and what I had experienced, Kate slept through the night at 7 weeks and Patrick at about 12, but he's my little rock star anyway. He doesn't do anything that you'd love him to do. He goes in the opposite direction. But really from there, I got a name for myself with my community, with my friends, with family. If somebody was struggling with sleep, they would turn to me and go, Erica, this is what's going on. How do I solve this? And I'd go, oh, well, sure, try X, Y, and Z. And invariably it would work. But it wasn't for about maybe, I think Quinn was about 8, when the ping moment went off, when a very, very good friend of mine, who's actually now my business partner, sat down in front of me 6 months after her twins were born, and the tears blobbed down her face. And she said, Erica, please help me. They're just not sleeping at all. And I helped her, and her husband jokingly said to me, Erica, you should be doing this for a living. And that started it. And from there, then I went on to establish what is now Bobo Og.
Cool. Niamh, tell us how you got to the point that you're at now.
Well, I was, since I was that high, I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. If anyone ever asked me in school what I was going to do, I was going to be self-employed. I always loved fashion, I love lifestyle, I love interiors. I've lots of loves, but generally they're all the kind of creative aspect. My parents are both self-employed, so maybe I grew up thinking that was more the norm. But definitely out of my 5 siblings, I'm the only one that went in that direction. And my parents tried to stop me going in that direction at any point that they could. And they always, I suppose, having been on the journey themselves, they were very much, security, job security, pensions, etc., etc. So I sort of a little bit behind their back, and without their knowing of it, I started kind of when I did my degree in Waterford. Actually, I did business and marketing, which was a great course, BBS down there. Then I went on and I did a master's in UCD and specialised in marketing. And then I went out into industry and I worked in software. I did a bit of travelling. I came back and I just really, really, really wanted to be self-employed. I just wanted to do my own thing. We moved to Gorey and I looked around to see what opportunities were out there, really. And as I said, I was open to any of those fields, but my real heart and love was always with fashion. So after a lot of research, I actually did do a lot of research, and I guess that really stood to me as time went on, because I built the brand from the day one. I remember putting a mirror in the window in the shop when we first opened, and I wrote in lipstick on it every day, counting down to our opening date, and creating the brand. The reason for it was, to be honest, the signage wasn't ready in time because they let me down. But, so from that moment forward, I started to kind of build momentum with talking to the customers in a different way, communicating with the customers. And I guess we continued that forward. And luckily enough, that helped build our audience, both, in the physical sense and obviously in the online space. So I suppose they're the beginnings of it, and kind of what brought us to where we are today.
And I'll get back to you, Erica, to tell us about what Bobo does. But so tell us, Ruby Rouge, obviously big transition in the last year for Ruby Rouge, but all the while you've been working away on a different project, which is Buyer Picks. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, absolutely. Well, Buyer Picks basically digitizes the buying process for fashion buyers. Now, obviously it can be used in any industry. It's not restricted just to fashion. But I suppose as we grew and, we propelled the business forward, we digitized everything. So we digitized, our social media, we digitized our accountancy, we digitized anything we could, we digitized to, I suppose, for the efficiencies and to make it work within the business better. The one area we could never find a solution for, and there was just nothing out there that covered it, was the buying function. That's arguably the most important, because I buy 3 different seasons at any one time. So it can get incredibly confusing. You're buying forward, you're buying in season, you're buying to buy for immediate delivery. So you can lose track of budgets, spend, you can duplicate your product, you can overbuy, you can be as busy as anything. But if you overbuy and your margins are reduced, you have an unsuccessful season. So, it was frustrating as the buyer. Everything is in my head. I attend all the shows. I see all the collections. Yet I have a team of people behind me that need all that information, all that great stuff, from the people who receive the stock in the inventory. They need to know what's coming in, when it's coming in. Even before that, the accountancy, they need to know what to plan to get in over the season. That's, timely in terms of, the weather, the time of the year, party time, etc., etc. So there's so many people in the team and in the mix, but yet I had all of my information internally on my phone or in my bag, and generally, delivery times in retail also, they also combine with buying times. So the times I really need to be there to make sure that the right product has come in the right order, the right fabric, the right color, etc. I'm not there, and all that information is with me as I'm traveling to buy the next collection. Yeah. So it was just a completely frustrating thing within the business, and it was something that was causing huge inefficiencies. It was, and we could see it. Now I'm very lucky. My husband is a programmer, and always we were putting in, our own little internal systems as we went along to cope with our development and our growth. And that was really what brought us to the next level. And where we are today, we could never be without Buyer Picks. So that's what's most exciting about where we are now. It's been a really dynamic 18 months. We have been working alongside Buyer Picks for the last couple of years. I've obviously been going through the process, and we have now reached a stage where we're using it within the business on a daily basis and seeing the results. And it's just very, very exciting time for us.
Brilliant. Yeah. And I've experienced, I've seen a little bit about what BuyerPix does, and understood from Neve what the problem is for buyers out there in like obviously in the big businesses. Like if you're buying for Brand Thomas or buying for Dunn's or whatever, there's a lot of supports and structure around you within the buying process. But if you're an independent retailer or an online retailer or whatever, you don't have as much support. You don't have as much functional support around you in the buying process. So there's a great opportunity there and a real problem that needs to be addressed.
It's a real problem.
Yeah. Erica, tell us now then, what 4 years ago, the twins, not your twins,
No, not mine.
and the crying and the lack of sleep. And you know what, I don't think there's probably most people who are on the call, any parent who's on this webinar today has experienced that despair, like, and it is despair when you're awake for 2-3 hours in the middle of the night. That's exactly what happened to me. I used to be awake like 2 to 4, you know, that kind of, and it's crazy time. It's actually crazy time because your head actually starts to explode.
That's because that's the sleep deprivation. And think about that. For sometimes I get parents who reach out to me and they're 3 years dealing with that.
Yeah,
like that's just it's insane to think that, you know, that you're functioning with that type of sleep deprivation. And I suppose I didn't want anybody else to experience what I had experienced. And that's the unique thing, I think, for me with Babog. I set out, even in those very early days, wanting to help as many families as possible to avoid what I had lived. That's what I wanted.
So what is Babog? What do you offer? How did it all?
So we now offer online sleep solutions to parents who are struggling with their children's sleep via a product called the Sleep Series. This is a video-based online sleep program that is grouped into relevant age ranges, which involve my 7 steps to better sleep to allow parents educate themselves about what to expect from child sleep within a particular age range, but also give them the toolkit and the ability to resolve sleep challenges. So at the moment, we offer that from newborn right up to 3.5 years of age. And in the next couple of weeks, we're going to be launching an older child sleep program from 4 years of age to 10 years of age. So we're trying to give parents an affordable, viable, accessible solution to help them with this very real problem that I would say 95% of parents experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And up till now, like, tell us a little bit about what Babog has achieved up to now, because obviously you're selling this online. This is a digital solution. Obviously there's competitors out there who come into your home or who do online or direct to the parent solutions, but these are really expensive. Those solutions, like to get in a sleep expert, is for people who are quite wealthy. It is an expensive solution.
It is, and I felt looking at that, Rosemary, that was something then that stopped parents being able to resolve this challenge in their lives. So I be honest, I started like that. That was my first step onto the sleep consultancy ladder, was that traditional therapist side of things, where I went to people's homes, I did the overnight, I did the Skype calls before Zoom was a thing. And, you know, that was how it started. But for me, as a business owner, and also for what I wanted to do, which was help as many families as possible, it wasn't viable. I could only help 12 families a month. That was all I could take on. You know, when I took into account my life, you know, supporting my family, everything, 12 families was it. And for me, that was like, oh, like I'm already at max capacity and I'm not meeting my goals as a business owner, and I'm not meeting my mission for Babog. So I was driving to a family in Wicklow one night, ready to do an overnight with them to help them with their little one's sleep. And I had like another light bulb moment. I had a very successful Instagram account started, and I had started to share video content on a Tuesday. Every Tuesday, I would put out a new video about a sleep challenge, and the audience loved it. So I was like, right, how can I take what they're loving and turn it into a product and monetize it. And that was where the idea for the sleep series came.
I love talking to both of you. The solutions that you've come up with were real life solutions in your own businesses.
Yeah.
You know, like with Niamh, with the genuine problem that you had in the business, that people didn't have the information, and the difficulty in transferring that information and moving it through the business. And the same with you, Erica, is that you were limited and you saw the problem directly. So you guys have come from an area that you have identified the real pain, because you have that knowledge from yourselves and from the industry and from what you were working in. And I think for anybody who's at that concept stage, anybody who's watching us today, who's at that really early stage, concept stage, idea generation, it is about finding the real problem, isn't it, that people are willing to pay for a solution for, rather than, you know, trying to shoehorn yourself into something that you've seen. If you've got good domain knowledge about a problem, that really is going to help in the development of the solution and to identify the right target market, you know, because you're already working there, you're already there in that industry, you know.
Absolutely. Like if I had have stayed on the trajectory of what had been paved before me with other sleep consultants, the business wouldn't actually be here now. I would have had to go back to paid employment with somebody else. It just simply wasn't viable, and nor was the solution actually viable for my customers.
Okay.
Yeah. You know, wasn't viable.
And also you're democratizing the opportunity as well, because it is much more affordable for people, so people can access that kind
Absolutely.
of thing. Yeah.
You're talking €400 plus to work with a sleep consultant one-to-one versus €59 for our packages, and you get support with that. They're still getting access to a sleep consultant. They're still able to, you know, ask a question and get an expert-led answer. And that's really what parents, particularly in the times we're living in now with COVID, post-COVID, whatever we're heading into, they're looking for support. Very often they've lost their villages. They don't live where they grew up. They're away from their mum or their aunties or whoever they're close with. So they're looking for non-judgmental support from somebody that they trust.
Yeah, brilliant. One thing that you both have in common and is some of the supports that you have received from over the duration of the journey so far, and then the plan going forward. So there's two specific things you guys have in common I'd love to get your perspective on. One is that you both undertook the New Frontiers programs in the Institutes of Technology here in the Southeast. And the other is that you've both been successful with the Competitive Start Fund from Enterprise Ireland, which is huge congratulations on that one. It's fantastic to get to that point and that level of validation and support. Niamh, tell us a little bit about the supports that you've received to date and maybe the funding plan for the future.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't talk them up enough, actually, to be honest, because I think they're key in the journey. And if anybody is out there and considering moving ahead, they really need to look at the supports that are out there and available to them. Definitely, obviously, we started off with the original conversation with LEO, with Breach, and then obviously then we were with CBIC, and you guys signposted us, I guess, in the right direction. Definitely to put in the application to New Frontiers. That for me was a huge thing, because it was, you know, having to put the commitment into that, take the time out of my own business, to really set the time aside and to really get into this and to see if we can really take this somewhere. You know, we're using it internally, but we need to, you know, really take this to the next level. And, you know, the commitment, the time, the effort, the more you put in, the more you get out. Obviously, at the initial part of my experience with the program, we were physically there, which was great, and we all got to know each other, and we had the camaraderie of the group, and the knowledge within the group was amazing, and the peer learning that we had, that whole experience, and great network to be in. I have to say, it's such an amazingly well-run program as well. I had the consultants, the mentors that came in, they were just superb. And a very rounded view of the whole thing, right from your product to your market to, you know, commercializing it to funding. But also I found very useful, there was a lot on your own internal wants and needs and what you want out of the business and how to cope with being an entrepreneur, which I think, you know, myself now 18 years in business and being self-employed, you know, it's a long journey and it's a difficult journey. And I think, you know, for me, it refocused me. So I did the New Frontiers program, and then I went on and thankfully I won the CSF. And we obviously practiced it all with you guys and in CBIC, which was amazing. I would recommend that to anybody. I mean, like I say, it's what you put in, what you get out. So I practice from the lighting to the script to everything. You know, you have 4 minutes, I think it is 4 minutes to get your whole business across, and all the amazing things that you have to tell about your business. And that's an incredibly difficult thing to do when you actually sit down and contain it. Yeah. So what was very useful with you guys in CBIC, and also worked with Eugene on it in New Frontiers, was, you know, really being critiqued and doing the pitch, practicing it, and getting feedback from you guys as to what to leave in and what to leave out. Because when you're the entrepreneur and when you see the whole vision and you're so immersed in your business, and sometimes trying to get it across succinctly is very difficult. And you know, that was the one thing I found absolutely great. But getting back to New Frontiers, certainly, you know, we had that moment then where we hit the pandemic, and you know, we were in a huge flux, I guess, in my original business, which is Ruby Rouge. What are we going to do? You know, everything's been stopped. You can imagine having a business like mine with the peak of the season, a huge amount of stock in hand, staff, you know, after the initial moment of like, we still have to pay the bills, pay the suppliers, we have no events, we have nothing to sell, you know, we have event clothing would be a huge part of our business. But we always had the online, and we always had, you know, that outlet. And I think I'm going to get to the very valid point now in a minute, because it was such a seismic shift, I guess, and a big decision, a big leap for us to take and for me to take. I honestly feel that my time in the New Frontiers program prepared me for that, because I knew that Buyer Picks was my way forward and where I was really driving the business. It's so connected to the online side of the business, and they're both so beneficial to each other. I knew that I felt that I had the confidence, I suppose, after being, you know, I graduated how many years ago, and you're kind of working alone. I guess you're a lone ranger to a degree when you're self-employed, and I hadn't revisited that. You're in the motion, you're constantly keeping the business going, and you're in the go, in the next part, and the next part, and the do of the day. And I think the pandemic brought the pause, made me look at it. And I think New Frontiers and revisiting and talking to a lot of those mentors and looking at the structures of business and moving forward and expanding, etc., regardless of whether it's Buyer Picks or Ruby Rouge or which part of the business, it really opened my mind to actually going, hold on a sec, what do I really want here? Where am I bringing this business? What am I going to commercialize? Which is going to be more successful? What am I doing with my time? And being a busy mother of 3, that had a huge part, looking at my values, paring it all back. Like, why, you know, what do I really want? So for me, New Frontiers was such an amazing experience from so many levels, as I, you know, and it was worth the time, it was worth the effort, and it really helped us bring Buyer Picks forward. Then we were very lucky enough, we got best business plan, and we also got into level 3, which gave us another couple of months support and mentorship, which was invaluable then in the CSF, applying for the CSF process and moving forward there. And then we went on to do the Innovate program in Dublin, which is excellent and sort of an advanced version of the New Frontiers. So definitely without the supports, without the mentorship, without the, you know, the kick on, because that's what the accelerator does. It sort of immerses you right into it, and you're fully immersed, and it really progresses you and accelerates you. And I guess that's the point of it. But certainly for me, along with the acceleration, it also actually really helped me have a huge amount of clarity about my business, what I was doing, where I was going, what I wanted to achieve. So I would say from both sides, you know, it was great.
Thanks, Niamh. I'd say, Eric, I saw you nodding fervently during that. I know a huge amount of things in common there for sure.
Everything Niamh said. Yeah, like everything Niamh said applies to the situation here, only I did all 3 levels of New Frontiers on Zoom.
Yes.
Yeah, so I didn't get to do the in-person bit. I don't know any different, but New Frontiers is excellent, but I suppose if I was to give any female entrepreneur who's, you know, on that first step on the ladder, it would be to network. It would be to go to the likes of Network Ireland first, because talking to other women is how you figure out where the programs are, what are the things that were successful for other female entrepreneurs. And that was how I found out about Acorns, which I'm part of, New Frontiers, which I was lucky enough to get onto, you know, any of the different types of supports. It was from talking and listening to other women. Even while Niamh was talking there, I wrote down something that I'm going to check out that she mentioned that I wasn't aware of, you know. So I think by doing that, for me, definitely starting with Network Ireland, Network Kildare, where I am, is really, really excellent and so open and so welcoming. When we had the idea for the sleep series, I pitched it to Jackie McNabb, who's the head of the LEO here in Kildare, and honestly, only with their support would we now be where we are, because she saw the idea and was able to tell us what they would be able to support via financial supports, but also mentoring supports as well. And that validated the whole process for us. And then we were able to move into New Frontiers. And exactly like Niamh said, yes, it does involve taking maybe a little step away from aspects of your business, but it is in order for you to be able to visualize and put in place where you want to go and how to get there. And that's exactly what happened for us with Babog. We will eventually move to a pure online business, and only by taking the time out with New Frontiers would we have figured that out.
Yeah, sure. And obviously, Erica, you literally have just received CSF in the last month, 2 months. Yeah.
Yes, months, yeah.
Yeah. So exciting stuff ahead now for the next stage of the funding journey, which is ideally, hopefully, on to HPSU and private equity investment, etc.
Yeah, fingers crossed, Rosemary. The CSF funding is just fundamental. Like, we now can take the steps forward in terms of the visualizing the strategy and the growth and the expansion that we want. Yes, we've way more to do after that, but this will allow us to really start that process. And yeah, we're both very excited about what the next couple of months holds for Babog.
Brilliant. And I'm going to ask you for one short, we're coming to the end of our time, but I'm going to ask you for one bit of advice that you would give, maybe if you were starting again, and something you would do differently, or a piece of advice that you'd give to some of the people who are on this webinar who are at an earlier stage than you are. What key bit of advice would you give? Niamh?
For me, it's a bit of a practical one. Despite, besides the supports, which I think are huge, and you need to find out everything that's available to you and get involved as much as you can, ask for help. People are so kind in giving their time, and that's my experience. I've never been refused, in terms of somebody giving me a bit of information or advice about something. And obviously trying to get funding where you can is essential, because, you need to be able to fund your way through this, and that's huge. On a personal note, I think minding yourself, I think that my experience of being an entrepreneur over the years, I have 3 children under 10, I have a busy life, I have employees, all of the above. I think that, there was a time where possibly I slept, breathed, ate, everything to do with business. And, it can become very consuming. And in some senses it has to, because it has to be, so much there in your present mind. But at the same time, I think you need your time out, you need your exercise, you need all those things. And that's one thing that I've learned, to kind of compartmentalize a little bit, and to ring fence, parts of your life. When you're an entrepreneur, when you're setting up a business, it can seep into every aspect. And I think that that'd be my top tip. Don't lose yourself within it. Set out your time for the parts of you that help you stay balanced and focused and healthy and well, and then all the other parts will follow, because that for me, that was a game changer. And one other thing was going back to my core benefits and my core values and why I'm doing it, and keep going back to that and making sure that every step you take is aligned with that, because if it is, you will speed on ahead, and it will just work for you from every aspect of your life.
Brilliant advice, Niamh. Thank you for that. Erica, I'm sure you're nodding away here.
Yeah, no, Niamh and I need to have a coffee or like a glass of wine because we're very, very aligned. And I had written down the same 3 things. Absolutely, don't be afraid to ask for help. Women who help women and support women make amazing things happen. I think one of the things that we aren't great at is, you know, putting ourselves out there, and we're maybe a little bit afraid of criticism, we're maybe afraid to share, but I'm telling you, where women share with each other and support each other, crazy things happen. And I am a sign of that, like, you know, because I reached out to other women for help. Definitely don't be afraid to walk into meetings, walk into funding situations, you know, put yourself out there, lean in on the supports like the Southeast BIC, like New Frontiers, like your LEO, absolutely do that. But one thing that Niamh touched on is just be careful of yourself. Women are great for trying to do everything at 110%, you know, great at your business, great as a mother, great as a wife, great as a friend. But, you know, everything can't be 110%. So carve out time, exactly like Niamh said. Personally, I diary all my exercise so that it's in my diary, so that I make it happen. I stop work when my children come in from school. That's it. You know, my focus at that time needs to be on them. But when they're not here, I am only working. You know, I'm not dealing with anything else. So try and carve out your time. So work time is work time, you know, kids time is kids time, exercise time is exercise time. And that way you will feel like you are ticking off bits of yourself that you want to be doing, that you want to do, you know. So, and that can be applied whether you are a female entrepreneur or stay-at-home mom or working, you know, as a manager or anything. Just mind yourself. I think we're all very much more aware of the wellness and how important it is. And having definitely, you know, come very, very close to falling off the edge, I know how important it is to mind yourself.
Brilliant. Ladies, thank you so much for that. It was lovely. We could sit here and talk probably for another 2 hours, and even if the other people want to go away, we'll just keep talking. But so thanks so much. It was really, really inspiring. I want to come for that glass of wine as well, please.
Yes, please.
Yeah, and we'll if you wouldn't mind holding on, there's definitely questions at the end if we can get to them. But there's some very complimentary comments as well coming in. So thank you so much for that, folks.
Thanks a million, Rosemary.
Thank you
a million for that, guys. I really enjoyed it. I love hearing the stories of where you came from, and also about all the different supports that you availed of. And Erica, you particularly helped me there, because when I was awake at 5:20 this morning with my daughter, I honestly thought I was the only person in the world. So that made me feel a lot better. Next up now, we have Terry Smith. So Terry is the manager of the HPSU division, the startup division in Enterprise Ireland. And Terry has a broad range and a broad understanding of the state funding available and supports available to all entrepreneurs. So Terry, thank you very much for joining today.
Great, thank you very much, Yvonne. I'm just going to share my screen here and just have some slides. I'll try not to go into them in too much detail. I'm kind of conscious of time for everyone, but just it was great to have the opportunity as well to share the information on the state support. So just going to share my screen here. So listen, thanks very much for that, Siobhan. So I'm just going to talk through the broad supports for startups, and obviously they'll all be relevant as well for women entrepreneurs or women-led businesses. And some of the areas have already been touched on there in terms of New Frontiers and local enterprise supports. So thanks to Niamh and Erica for highlighting those as well. Okay, so Enterprise Ireland has a women in business strategy that we launched early last year. Siobhan referred to it earlier on. And again, there's key objectives there in terms of increasing the number of women-led established companies growing internationally, so more established companies, increasing the number of women in senior management and leadership roles in Irish companies, increasing the number of women becoming entrepreneurs, and then the next stage, increasing the number of women-led startups with high growth potential. And I will be talking more about how we support those types of businesses. Okay, so in terms then of the landscape, so as was referred to earlier on, there's a range of supports for entrepreneurs and for early stage companies. And, you know, they very much straddle the local enterprise support and Enterprise Ireland support. And what I'd just like to highlight really is kind of the key difference. Often we get asked, what's the difference between local enterprise and Enterprise Ireland? So typically local enterprise is your first stop shop. So the first port of call, maybe when you're at that early stage, idea concept stage, and when you're maybe doing that kind of early feasibility work on your business, early business planning, etc. And typically companies come to Enterprise Ireland in terms of our high potential startup program when maybe they've got the business plan to a stage where they have a credible export opportunity. You know, we're looking for companies that have that ambition to grow from international sales or export sales. And we also do have particular eligibility criteria in terms of the types of businesses we support, being internationally traded businesses and manufacturing business. So sometimes companies maybe more domestically focused, and would remain with local enterprise even as an established company. And Enterprise Ireland very much focuses on the companies with high growth potential and export-led growth. And it is as well, just worth bearing in mind as well, that we work very closely with the local enterprise, and we refer companies, if we think a company is maybe a little premature for Enterprise Ireland or is maybe more suitable for the local enterprise supports, we will refer to local enterprise and vice versa. So we do work very closely together to highlight that as well. So we'll just move along now. So as everyone knows, there's local enterprise offices in every county in this country. So, do get into the website, great source of information there. You just need to pop in where you're located and the information will come through then. So there are supports from local enterprise that are financial and non-financial supports. A lot of the non-financial supports, I know Erica and Niamh referred to earlier on, very much around the mentoring, the networks, the training programs and initiatives. And on the financial side, there are some grant supports for early stage companies, which I'll talk through now shortly. Okay, so as I said, there is the start your own business type of courses, there's some management training initiatives, and mentoring that can be provided through the staff of the local enterprise, but also they have access to independent mentors as well that they can assign to work with you on your business plan. So the Start Your Own Business program has been going for quite a number of years now, very well established, and I know through the pandemic that there was a kind of a switch to run a lot of these programs online, which I think a lot of people have said has made this a lot more accessible. Being able to do a course remotely can be very convenient versus maybe having to head somewhere and do the program as well. So just to recognize that development as well. On the management development side, there's a range of training offers as well around areas such as cash management, communication, social media for business, which is one that's becoming very prominent now as well. The whole area of intellectual property, very, very important for a startup, especially anyone who's got a new technological innovation in the company. HR management, appropriate right across the board, and planning for Brexit or the new variation on that now is obviously critical as well. So huge support available there from your local enterprise. And again, as I mentioned earlier on, there is this general mentoring, grant mentoring, which is more around trying to see what is the appropriate financial support for your company. And then if there's specialised mentoring, such as for Microfinance Ireland or for Brexit related issues, there's access to that level of advice and support to local enterprise as well. So these are some of the financial supports. There is a kind of a more extensive range of financial supports available through local enterprise. But these are the key ones for the startup companies. So you have a feasibility grant, priming support, and business expansion support. So just touch on it here. Typically one of the other main differences between local enterprise stage companies and Enterprise Ireland is that the local enterprise supports companies that are up to 10 employees that are starting up or expanding. So, I often get asked, when would a company transition from local enterprise to Enterprise Ireland? It can be for in a situation for less than 10 employees, if it's one that we deem appropriate for the high potential startup program. So I know, for example, Niamh's company and Erica's company both got introduced to Enterprise Ireland through the Competitive Startup Fund. So that's an example where, we do onboard companies from local enterprise stage to Enterprise Ireland, through the CSF program, but also through just general inquiries with our high potential startup unit, whereby, a company maybe is ready for its seed investment. And at that point, they would transition to the HPSU team. We also onboard local enterprise stage companies, maybe that are grown beyond the 10 jobs and have export potential or already starting to export, and they would transition to our exporter development unit. So I've kind of touched on this already in terms of the feasibility support. So, you know, great support there for someone at that very early stage. The feasibility support, 15,000 in the Southeast region. And the primary support is very much focused on employment type grants for those maybe first additional employees in the company. And that can go right up to 150,000, depending on the jobs potential in the company. Okay, other supports available from local enterprise. And again, as I said, this is not exhaustive. So the trading online vouchers, there's the exporters grant, which is the TAME grant as it's known. And there's also, you know, just as Niamh and Erica were referring to earlier on, that whole access to networks. Like they do run a lot of initiatives that bring communities together as well. So just to be mindful of that. So from Enterprise Ireland's point of view then, we support and we fund the New Frontiers programme, which we referred to earlier on as well, the Competitive Startup Fund, which is that pre-seed funding for our high potential startup companies, our high potential startup funding and services, which refers to the co-investment, the seed type investment, and the additional services that we provide. We provide market research centre support, mentoring support, and another kind of widely used support is the innovation vouchers, which, you know, a company can be a local enterprise stage and get that. And also just to bear in mind, a company can be local enterprise client, and maybe a little bit early for Enterprise Ireland, but can still avail of the services of our market research centre, which is available online as well at the moment. And through specialised mentors, if you deem, you know, or the local enterprise deem that you need a more focused mentor, they can access the mentor network from Enterprise Ireland as well, but that would have to be agreed with your local enterprise contact. So New Frontiers got great shout out earlier on there from our startups. So you know, a fabulous program, and I completely agree with what's been said. We get great feedback on New Frontiers, and it's funded by Enterprise Ireland, but run in conjunction with the Institutes of Technology and technological universities around Ireland. So the scope there, there's a portal there to register your interest. And as Rosemary said earlier on, you know, there's some information available through the Business Innovation Centre, Southeast BIC, if you want to learn a little bit more about that. But certainly a great program just to get a new startup off the ground. The ladies have referred to the Competitive Startup Fund earlier on as well. And just to highlight, as Siobhan said, we have an open call at the moment for women-led startups for up to 20 investment offers potentially. It's open at the moment. It closes on the 28th of September at 3 o'clock. And I think anyone who's interested in that programme should contact the team at Southeast BIC. They, you know, they will provide support and mentoring in terms of supporting you prepare and plan for your application, prepare for your pitch, etc. So I think, you know, I'd highly advise anyone interested to connect in with Southeast BIC on that front. And I will have information at the end in terms of where you can find more information on it, and maybe contact our own team in Enterprise Ireland if you've any questions. Okay, so I'm trying to kind of, I suppose, piece through the different parts of the journey here. So typically a company might start out with New Frontiers, maybe become a local enterprise client. Some can transition then to be a high potential startup. So what we mean by that is a company that's manufacturing or an internationally traded service company that is under 5 years from a corporation with the potential to offer an innovative service or product on international markets. So we do have quite specific criteria and eligibility requirements. And you know, what we're looking for there is companies that have that potential to grow to at least 1 million in sales in 3 to 4 years, and to create a minimum of 10 jobs in that period. Now, that may sound like a tall order, and not every company gets there that quickly, but it's to have a business proposition or a product offer or service that you've done the market research on and can show, you know, this isn't a me too, this has potential to grow outside of Ireland. I think that's the critical difference between a company that moves forward to a high potential startup stage versus, you know, might remain a domestically focused company from a market point of view. So, you know, some of the key pointers there for our HPSU investment, or I call it seed stage, just to kind of, you know, show a clear differentiator between competitive startup fund and HPSU. So the competitive startup fund and our early stage feasibilities would be the stage before a HPSU investment or seed stage. So at that stage, we're looking for a product that has, some traction in the market, maybe some beyond fairly friendly or early stage companies. There must be a clear demonstrated commercial roadmap and show that this can scale, and that there's a pipeline there of prospective customers. Having a technical or product roadmap for the next 12 months is critical, because it's important for us to know, what the investment is required for, what does the money need to be spent on. And it's important as well, a critical point as well, is to have have a team that has an informed grasp of the competitive environment, export potential. Enough that we think this has potential, but you've done the research to show that it has potential, and that you can engage with investors. I think there's a lot of support available in terms of getting your financial model right, from business innovation centers, and I think it's important that any entrepreneur can confidently walk through their financial model with an investor. So you may need help with that initially, but certainly getting to that point where you're taking ownership of that level of information, and there's plenty of support out there to help with that. I think it's important as well just to highlight, everything is a continuous journey, and once companies get to that seed investment stage, almost need to be thinking of the next stage, but just being clear as well around, if you're raising your seed investment, what's that money for, what's it going to help you achieve commercially, and to be thinking the step beyond that. And critical piece for Enterprise Ireland as well is that we have evidence of your co-investment and customer traction and the customer pipeline. So really what that means is that the whole commercial aspects of the business have been thought through. So sometimes companies might come to us looking for a seed investment. We may feedback, listen, you're a little bit early for that now, but we'll see what other supports we can give you to help you get there. So that's just to give some pointers there on the HPSU. Some other pointers there as well are that Enterprise Ireland invests based on the identified cash need. So this is where the co-investment comes in. We aren't the only investor. The mechanisms within the investment structure vary. So it will depend on what the structure of the co-funded investment looks like. Enterprise Ireland just broadly typically invests on the seed round in cumulative convertible redeemable preference shares. When there's maybe a private investor there, if there's an institutional investor or a VC, we typically co-invest on similar terms. So if the how we invest depends on the structure of the co-investment, and they will vary. So these are kind of broad pointers. But if we do invest in ordinary shares, and I know the Competitive Startup Fund is ordinary shares, we never take any more than 10% of the company. And even if we have invested in Competitive Startup Fund type structure, that will get diluted thereafter. So just to bear that in mind. But sometimes in a co-investment, we may invest in ordinary shares if the co-investor is invested in ordinary shares. But at that, we will only invest in it to up to 10%. So just to highlight that as well. Some other pointers there, I've mentioned the Market Research Centre and the mentoring support. So just to highlight again, that's available for local enterprise stage companies that can access it through their local enterprise, and also for high potential startup clients. And again, from the high potential startup perspective, if you are a client of the HPSU division in Enterprise Ireland, there is a range of supports available. So be sure to connect in with your DA development advisor to ensure that you're optimizing the support's potential. Some other kind of ones that are widely used maybe at the earlier stage is our innovation vouchers. And again, they're not restricted to Enterprise Ireland clients. They can be available for, new entrepreneurs or for early stage companies, maybe they're a local enterprise. So I've just highlighted there some other pointers there. There's the SURE scheme, the revenue scheme for those investing in new startups. Microfinance Ireland has some loan type instruments for early stage companies, but typically you would need to have a cash flow or the ability to repay in those instances. So it mightn't be overly suitable for very early stage companies, but certainly as the company grows, in some instances can get great support from microfinance. The BICs, of course, as Rosemary and Siobhan and the team and Aidan in South East BIC, great support and advice available there. There's some government websites on this, and I'm going to share some information on a new Start in Ireland portal shortly as well. And there's, you know, some other kind of broad other government schemes, such as the Back to Work enterprise allowance. So just informing yourself around all the support structures there is critical as well. So as I mentioned earlier on, there's a new portal. It's called the Start in Ireland portal, and this was launched earlier on this year to help entrepreneurs and early stage companies navigate the landscape of supports for startups. So there is a huge amount of support out there, be it financial or non-financial. And, you know, this is a must have or a must go to for any entrepreneur, early stage company, or even a company maybe that's, you know, within that 0 to 5 years from incorporation bracket. Basically, you go, you click on the link, you pop in what sector you're in, your broad location, where you're interested in initiatives, the stage of development, you know, are you at the ideation stage or are you at growth stage? You pop in your, you know, you get this tailored based on your own characteristics. And you may select, oh, I'm interested in co-working space, or I'm interested in funding structures. And it does kind of output an Excel sheet to show you all the different supports. You can go in at any time. You can go in a few months later and see, well, what's available for me now. I'm interested in events maybe in the Southeast, for example. You put in your details. Great resource there, and I just highly recommend that everyone has a look at the portal and use it on a continuous basis. So finally, for me, there's just some other links of the Start in Ireland portal link there, the local enterprise link, definitely the first port of call there. You've got your access to the South East BIC as well through the contacts with the team here today. And I've just put up the link there as well for the Competitive Start Fund. So that's the general web link where you'll find all the information about the new Women Entrepreneurship CSF. And just to note as well, there's a second competition running in parallel at the moment. We call it our All Sectors, but that effectively means that it's for any company that meets those criteria, but we do have the specific women entrepreneurs one as well, and all those same sectors will apply there. The main difference between the women entrepreneurship call and what we call the all sectors call is that to qualify for the women entrepreneurship call, one of the criteria is that you must have a woman on the management team that has at least 25% of the voting share capital at the time we would invest. So if you're applying as an individual, you just need to show in the application how you're going to plan to work towards that requirement. So just to highlight that, if anyone has any questions there on that, I've included our email address there, csf@enterprise-ireland.com. And just to highlight as well, the Competitive Start Fund isn't the only way we support companies at an early stage. Sometimes companies opt not to apply for it, and they may come to our general HPSU inquiries. And I've just highlighted there the email address for that there as well. So that's it for me. Thanks to everyone for listening and for giving me the opportunity to speak here this morning. I'm very open to questions at the end. Thank you.
Kelly, thank you so much for sharing all the supports with us. Unfortunately, we did have an issue with your screen share. So what I might ask is, we're just having technical difficulties all day. I do apologise. What I might ask is at the end, we might send a PDF out to all the attendees on the call.
Brilliant. No problem. Thanks, Siobhan. Sorry about the sharing.
No, you're fine. No, you're fine. It's not your fault. Finally, we're going to move on to Aisling over in Art Labs, and we're going to have our second fireside chat. And Christine, Aideen and Marion are there, and they're going to talk us through their entrepreneurial journey. So thanks a million.
Super. Thank you so much, and good afternoon, everyone from Art Labs. I was really excited when Rosemary, Aidan and Siobhan got in touch with me about doing this event. So we generally on an annual basis come together to celebrate female entrepreneurs, and like that, shining a light on our Southeast Network Ireland branches. And particularly looking at the entrepreneurial journey, I immediately thought of the three women that are with me here today. So from the Waterford branch, I have Aideen Carrick. From the Tipperary branch, I have Marion Kennedy, and from the Kilkenny branch, I have Christine Scarry, who has actually just become a client with us in Waterford as well. So really tipping on all of the Southeast connections. So like Rosemary, I love the chat and the story and understanding a little bit about the people. So I'm going to invite each of our participants to give us a little bit of an overview of themselves and their businesses, and we might dig a little deeper into some of the most interesting themes that are emerging. So I'm going to go to the end of the table to start. I'll say hello to Christine, and if you could tell us a little bit about yourself, Christine, and your journey so far.
Hi, Aisling. Thank you very much, and hello, ladies. It's a real pleasure to be here this morning amongst inspiring women. I really enjoyed listening to Niamh and Erica earlier. It was absolutely fantastic. My name is Christine Scarry, and I am a theatre director, a voice coach, and vocal health advocate. I'm originally from Ballymun in Dublin, and I've been living in beautiful Kilkenny for the past 5 years, where I've been really lucky to meet and work alongside the incredibly supportive women in Network Ireland Kilkenny branch. I'm very honoured to represent them here today. I'm artistic director of Red Alchemy Theatre Company. I'm a musical director of a vocal sextet Alchemy, and I'm an authorised voice coach with Vocology in Practice. I'm currently writer in residence at the Watergate Theatre for 2021. So I'm immersed in the arts all my life since I was a child, as a performer and then as a director and musical director. So when COVID came to call last year, the outlook was desperately bleak for myself and my husband, who also works in theatre. So almost 2 years of future work was wiped out. And so since I've been working with voice my whole life, I decided to relook at that and see what could I do to actually save myself and future-proof us in some way. So based on the skills that I already have acquired and many years of experience at this stage of my life, I decided to upskill in vocal health, and I undertook some further advanced training in that area, and decided to develop this side of my business. So the voice industry was born at that stage. And through the power of networking, and the fabulous Aisling O'Neill here, I'm so fortunate to last month to become a client here at Arc Labs, and I'm really, really excited to utilise the expertise and facilities here to take the business to the next level.
Fantastic, Christine. It's kind of really interesting. So we're co-located with the Walton Institute. You'll see our colleague Carol from the Walton Institute has popped a chat in there around the services that the Walton Institute can offer in terms of digital tech support. But when Christine came to me with her idea, you know, it was really so innovative, looking at voice care for Ireland and hoping to establish that within the Southeast. And we can tap into all of the innovation infrastructure in the Institute through Arc Labs. So we're going to look at using our health science faculties, using our music faculty, using, you know, all of the different infrastructures and knowledge and skills that are here to really see this develop. So it's just a really interesting way to see how we have maybe a client that's not our normal style business that would be in Arc Labs, right? And it's really exciting for us to work with you as well, Christine.
And I have to say that has been probably one of my stumbling blocks along the way, is coming from the background that I do. I felt like a bit of an outlier, that I mightn't necessarily have belonged in this kind of world. And actually, you know, my association with Network Kilkenny helped me get over that in a big way, where I was accepted and supported. And also then your faith in me, I think, to take me on here has been really huge to help develop my confidence in that way. I was very lucky last year as well to be accepted onto a postgrad course in Trinity for cultural and creative entrepreneurship. And that also really, really helped me on my journey, because it equipped me with a language that I previously hadn't spoken at all. So, and I'm still learning. I'm not fluent yet, but getting there.
So, but we're all learning all the time. That's the thing, isn't it? And I one thing I should mention as well is that we have your fantastic sextet performing at the National Conference on the 8th of October, which will be broadcasting live from the Theatre Royal. So a really exciting day for us in Network Ireland.
Yeah, looking forward to it. I'll be speaking through my fingers on the piano that day. And the girls, there are 6 amazing women who I hope will add immensely to the day. We're very much looking forward to being back on stage.
It would be superb for all of us as well. So I'll pass you over to Marion now. So Marion is from our Kilkenny, Tipperary branch, president. resident of our Tipperary branch. And I met Marion actually when she did phase 1 of New Frontiers here in Art Labs.
Yeah, but yeah, we go way back then. Actually, you know, the first time I met you was the pitch competition.
Oh, yes, the Fueling Ambition
The Fueling
Roadshow. That
Ambition
actually was
Roadshow,
an
yeah.
Enterprise Ireland initiative.
Yeah,
that was fantastic.
Yeah,
Yes,
that'd be great to do that. No, because I remember walking in the door and somebody said, "Did you see Aisling? Doesn't she look fabulous? Isn't she fabulous?" And I was like, "Who's Aisling?" And I totally agree. So yeah, hi everyone. It's been a fantastic morning. Listen to everybody's stories. My name is Marion Kendi. I'm from Clonmel, County Tipperary. Hence the uptip. I am mother to 2 beautiful girls. They're my world, and they are the reason behind my business as well. I suppose coming back from a personal story. Just listening to Niamh earlier as well, work ethic and stuff. Again, watching my parents working so hard when we were younger as well. My dad worked in a farm and had every second Sunday off, and my mother had like 3 jobs. She worked in a bar, she did cleaning, she minded kids, and we were always part of that journey as well. So I started working when I was 14 and I had to get my parents to sign a letter, and that you could only do like 7 hours of work at that time, but I think I did 37 in my first week. It was summer holidays, but yeah, people were saving up for new clothes, and I bought a computer was my big thing. I always knew I'd be my own boss. I always wanted that I had that kind of spirit. I always said, when somebody said, "What do you want to do when you grow up?" And I said, "No, I just want to do, my name is going to be outside a door. I know I'm going to do my own thing." So I'll bring you on to 2015 when I gave birth to my little girl, Emily. She wasn't so little. She walked out of me and at 9 pounds 4 ounces, and I incurred really bad vaginal tears. So I was the first of my family and friends to have a child. I didn't know what I was doing. I looked on Dr. Google a lot, and I really wanted something to take care of myself. I sent my husband into the chemist. He came home with a bag of stuff, a whoopee cushion, everything. He got everything. And I just didn't know how to make up these homemade pads, homemade sprays, remedies, and I was looking online and everything I had to buy in from abroad. So I just had the idea that, oh look, can I do something after that? And I mean, I worked in the HSE at the time. I was in obviously full-time employment, went back. But it was actually the iBike competition that I entered first, the Irish Business Young Entrepreneurs, and then I did the Fuel Ambition roadshow as well. But I got the runner-up prize in Tipperary, and I just thought I won the whole thing, because for me that was just validation that there was an idea and that there was something there. And really since then, like, I've just done anything that's going, I've been doing it. I have to say to somebody earlier on, I was like an accelerator whore. I do everything. But I really think, as what you say, did I enjoy it? I did, because I learned something from every journey I've done. I've learned something. I've done the New Frontiers phase 1 here. I did New Frontiers 2 in the Rubicon. Got great connections there. We're working with the Health Innovation Hub now, and we're hoping to do clinical trials next year with CUMH. So it was great partnerships and great relationships that we got there. I was lucky enough to get the CSF as well, and I did the Innovate program. I just loved that program. It was so good. The women, the support, like that between Network Ireland, the Acorns, but the Innovate thing, we're still have a really active WhatsApp and support. And I think we're all at that stage now. We're all at seed funding, and that's where we're at, and we need the support and advice. And we've opened our seed fund, so that's where I'm at the moment. It's a journey.
And it's a very interesting one. So at the start of the session today, you know, we had Siobhan let us know the startlingly terrifying figure that just 3% of investors within the HBAN network are female. And as a result, we have a session as part of the conference now next month around demystifying investment. So like that, we would have a lot of women members of Network Ireland who I believe are probably in a position to invest, but maybe just aren't really familiar with how it works, or think that they have to be investing €2 million, you know, to be able to participate. So we're going to have a number of different perspectives shared there in terms of encouraging people to get involved in investing, but also kind of demystifying the investment process, because it can be so daunting, you know, for an early stage business to enter into that arena, and all of the different terminology and all of these different things. It can feel really, really,
cap tables, shares,
terrifying.
everything is it's intimidating. But I think like those programs and the likes of the Innovate and the New Frontiers, they do support you for educating with the legal terminologies, with things that you are so green. Well, I was so green going into it that I didn't know.
Yeah.
Definitely a benefit.
And we had a question in, I know they're going to do a bit more Q&A at the end, but there was a question in around standing out in CSF. Do you have any advice on your experience in putting together your pitch and what you think made you stand out to the judges at that time?
I suppose, well, I had great support now as well from the Southeast Vic as well. Rosemary, Carol and Aidan, and poor Aidan was probably sick of me talking about vaginas. But it was, the support that I got was great. Now when I look at and I'll be straight, I entered 4 times. I got it on my 4th run. I got to pitch on my 4th run and I got to go up to Dublin. But when I look at, like, I was working full time, I'm really happy that I kept going. I didn't give up because I can look at my 1st application to my 4th application and see how much I've grown and how much I've changed and how much the business has, what I've done to support it. And at each stage, I didn't see that as a rejection. I saw that as feedback, because when I got to speak to them, they were like they were just guiding you, like, this is the way you need to do it. And I finally got there, like, so that's, I don't know about standing out, but you know, obviously I think the key thing is validate your market. You have to have a validation that you have a market, and go from there.
For sure. And that's so important, isn't it? That perseverance, you know, in terms of you know, brushing yourself off, taking the feedback and then improving going forward, you know, and that's, I think, something that's really important for everyone to appreciate from today. You know, there are all these supports there that are just that, they are supports, and we are all here to help each other. And I think I've taken notes furiously as the morning has gone on, but ask for help is the most important thing, personally and professionally, that I think we can share with any entrepreneurs, but obviously within the context of this, particularly female entrepreneurs that, you know, can often end up trying to do absolutely everything and burning out within it. So like that, taking all of the advice that you can, all of the support that you can, to be able to drive on and improve all the time. Thank you, Marion. So we'll go over to Waterford now. So beside me here we have Aideen Carrick, who is president of our Waterford branch. And you have a fantastic business in Cantech, and I think very similar to Niamh, taking a very traditional industry that ye have done very interesting things earlier this year to go down that kind of process of digitizing what is a very kind of traditional industry. So tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey, Aideen.
Thank you very much, Aisling. It's like the girls said, it's lovely to be here and to hear everybody's stories, because by hearing other people's stories, it really helps to motivate you to keep going in your own story. My story is a little bit different and a little bit untraditional. I started off as a civil servant. I worked in the civil service for almost 10 years before my family circumstances meant that I needed to do something different. And my parents at that time were running a business in Waterford called Cantech. The word Cantech comes from Canon technology. It was a traditional Canon photocopier provider. And my dad had been in that business since 1968. So like from before I was born, I was in the copier business. Anyway, I needed to change my work circumstances, and I knocked on mum and dad's door and said, any chance of a job, part-time job, please. And sure, they welcomed me with open arms, but they had already nabbed my brother, who's a couple of years younger than me. They'd already nabbed him a few years earlier, and he said, oh, I'll come and I'll work with you for 1 year, and then I have to go off and do my own thing. But of course, he never left. So I joined a business that my parents were running and my brother was working in, and I just worked, and I always loved working. I always loved making decisions and working things out, I never realized that I was an entrepreneur. I've only realized in the last couple of years because I never really felt, I suppose, because I didn't start the business, I never felt that I was an entrepreneur. But I've learned to gain a bit of confidence in what I have achieved over the years. And so yes, now I do understand that I'm an entrepreneur. So I'm the co-owner and operations director of Cantech. And as you mentioned earlier this year, we did a little relaunch and a rebrand. And the reason for that is because, well, obviously, we used to sell photocopiers, and you know, there's no such thing as a photocopier anymore. Every photocopier is a printer. So we had become a technology company quite a long time ago, in that we had to learn how to network these printers, and then we evolved into providing managed print, which is a all-encompassing service. And even with that, you know, there's been talk of the paperless office for so long that, you know, it's okay to not really believe it, and it's probably not actually ever going to happen. But either way, a lot of our revenue is based on how many prints come out of each printer, and as people, well, particularly in the pandemic, as people were printing less and less, our revenues were dropping and dropping and dropping. So we needed to look at where we're going next. And that was where the relaunch came in. About this time last year, we agreed with a startup software company in Cork to merge. And so that happened, and of course it takes time to negotiate and paperwork and all that kind of thing, but we had our big launch in the spring of this year. So now we are calling ourselves Cantech Group, and we have 3 divisions. DocuTech is our traditional managed print side. Smart Office is our software solutions side, and Promotive is our design, print, branding, marketing full service agency. So that's where we're at. We're getting bigger all the time. We're having, like every business, we're having trouble with cash flow over COVID. We have never gone down the traditional funding route. We haven't engaged with the LEO, and we haven't engaged with Enterprise Ireland, but our Smart Office division is a software development house, you know, and we are developing new softwares. Our existing software that came with Smart Office is an accounts payable package. Every business has an accounts payable function, and this just automates that function. And we're actually in beta testing at the moment on our clearance tech software, which is an automation of some of the customs clearance procedures that have suddenly stung us with Brexit. So that's a very exciting little nugget. But we're supporting all this development work through cash flow. If things were normal on the other side of the house, we'd be supporting it through cash flow. We did get funding last year, one of the future growth loans through our bank AIB, which has kept us going up to now, and it's time for us to start looking at what else is out there, because we'll probably need a bit more before we start, before it all starts paying for itself. Yeah,
for sure. But a really interesting time and an interesting development, you know, moving into that kind of merger process. Like how did you find that? Was that smooth? Was it?
Yeah, like it's funny. Like we've done a couple of these things over the years. So 10 years ago, we merged with an almost identical business in Limerick and brought on a business partner. And 5 or 6 years ago, we acquired a base of customers from a very similar business up in the northeast. And then last year we met these 2 lads from Cork. It has been relatively smooth. We've been able to work out a way that made everybody happy. But I think the key thing was finding people who got along, you know, so picking the right people that you feel it intrinsically that these guys are going to be part of our team, you know, and that definitely helps.
And most important thing, what did your parents think?
Sure, my parents, they think we're mad. Because, you know, they started up this business and they made it successful. A part of the success obviously was bringing Greg and me on board, but they made it successful, but they were never overly ambitious. They weren't the kind of people who wanted to conquer the world. They wanted to have a business that was viable, that paid a few people's mortgages, that looked after the customers really well, that treated people properly, and that, you know, put enough money away in their pensions so that they could retire and go gardening, you know. And so they achieved that. But my brother is way more ambitious than that. I'm very competitive with him, so anything he is good at, I want to be good at it as well, you know. Any idea he has, I want a better idea. But I actually wouldn't have the ideas, I wouldn't have the drive within the business if it wasn't for him. So he has the vision and sees the future and gets everybody to come on the journey, and I sit behind him and I go, okay, how are we going to make this work? And I work out all the kind of stuff in the background, hence operations director.
Yeah, so you're spurring each other on and supporting each other all the way.
Yeah.
Now, I'm kind of very aware that we're coming to the end of time already, which is mental. But I suppose how we got invited here today was our Network Ireland connection, and how we can look at networks to build our businesses and support us as we grow. I suppose, is there any kind of key bit of advice that you would have for the audience with regard to networking or your experience of networking thus far? You know, will I maybe start at the end of the table with Christine?
Well, I think I've probably hit on that already by what I said earlier, in that you know, the support that's available is huge and it can really propel you forward. And I think what you said earlier, and I think Niamh said it earlier as well, is about not being afraid to ask. I think people love to help.
Yeah.
And if they have, it has been my experience in the network, not just for the people in the network, what they can bring, but for the people that they know outside of that, and the, you know, the exponential help that you can receive through that wider network again. So to ask and you shall receive. But that has been my experience so far anyway. So I would absolutely highly recommend it. Yeah.
For you, Marion?
Yeah, it is really the same. My mother just says, open your mouth, that person can help you. They won't help you, or they might direct you to somebody who will help you. But then with regards to networking, somebody said to me once, how do you know that's going on? And I was like, how do you not? Like, if you're online, if you're active, if you're engaging, you're with your networks. We just got onto, we did the complete, it was an inaugural mentorship program with Enterprise Ireland for Australia and New Zealand, and people have messaged me afterwards, and I was like, look, yeah, I got on. It was with one of the trade days, you know, we were looking for international expansion, and because of that, we were contacted by a VC recently. Like, it's a funny path how things work out. I suppose because we're so complex, we have two divisions. We have an OTC range called New Mum, and we have our home care division that we're looking into. We're going to need a lot of contacts, and it's just to get out there. And like this, I think just any opportunity that you have, promote yourself, promote your business, get out there and do it.
Yeah. And like that, the kind of network effect, like you described, Christine, it's not just who I know, it's who I know, who knows, who knows, who knows. And it's exponential, isn't it, for sure. Aideen, you're relatively new to the world of networking, and you've really thrown yourself in fantastically.
In at the deep end,
How have you found it?
Okay, so I was a reluctant networker in the past. Our business has been a member of Waterford Chamber for years and years and years, and I used to go to the odd event, and I felt like an idiot in the corner, and I was afraid to go near people. But I was lucky enough about 3 years ago to be invited by AIB onto their Women in Enterprise program, and I did a training course through them, and like, it really, the training that you receive from these places is just amazing, because it gives you confidence and it opens your eyes to what else is out there. But it was through that training program that I was introduced to Network Ireland, and when I got back to my desk in Waterford, I said, right, I'm going to join that now and see what the story is. I would have, in the past, I would have been very reluctant to join anything that's women's only, because I really feel that we're all people and we should just get on with it. But having done the Women in Enterprise program with AIB, I actually learned that you can share so much more. That you can be more confident about sharing your worries, you know, which you might not want to share in a group of largely men. So having these women-only networks is actually quite important. And so I joined the network, and I went to a few events, and I enjoyed the chats, and I have found that the more you do it, the better you get. The easier it gets and the better you get. And like, just my experience now as being president of Waterford branch, we're on a president's WhatsApp group, and members of each branch would go to their president with, you know, a specific topic or a problem or an issue, whatever. The president will just put up a message in the WhatsApp group, and then you've got all these volunteers saying, oh, I know somebody who can do that, and I know somebody. And it's just like, exactly as you said, it's not getting to know one person, it's getting to know all the people that person knows as well. It's just a connection through. So it's great for support, it's great for confidence and morale, and it's great for publicity, you know.
For sure, for sure. We could stay here, I'm sure. Admittedly, we are going to have some lunch, so we're very, very excited. But I think I'd better pass it back over to you, Siobhan.
Yes, Aisling, thank you so much for that. And Aideen, Marion and Christine, thank you for sharing your journeys with us, and telling us more about network, and also sharing how important women networking together is. And I suppose that's what we want to get across today at this webinar. Unfortunately, we have run past your time, so I think I'm going to hold off from the Q&A. I know the questions that had come in, and a couple of the ladies had answered to them directly. So thank you so much for that. I just want to put up a final reminder that the Competitive Start Fund is open and it will run until the 28th of September. If you have any questions at all in relation to it, if you're thinking of applying, please contact myself, Rosemary, or any of our colleagues in the South East BIC. We will be delighted to help you, and we'll put our email addresses, I think, in the chat just so you have them. And I know you already have Rosemary's from sending out this invite today. So finally, a massive thank you to all our panelists today, in particular to Aisling and Rosemary for helping me run this webinar. To Niamh, Erica, Aideen, Marion and Christine, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your experience. And for myself and all my colleagues at the BIC, thank you to all the attendees for signing in, and we hope you found it beneficial. We'll talk again soon.